Hi, my name is Jason Denon, and I'm here to talk about my near-death experience, and I'm looking forward to talking to you about it. I Before my experience with the near-death experience, my life was spent a lot outdoors, climbing mountains, skydiving, doing triathlons, working quite a few hours on top of that. So trying to get outside as much as possible, life of adventure, and trying to experiment with lots of different things in life to test myself and see if I'm able to accomplish my goals. So my near-death experience happened when I was skydiving. I was coming in for a landing. I was about 150 feet off the ground when a huge wind came off the mountains and picked me up and slammed me through a fence into the side of an airplane hangar. And I was going about 30 miles an hour, so I hit so hard on into the airplane hangar that I broke 10 of my 12 ribs on the left side of my body. That impacted my heart. My heart shot from the left side of my body all the way to the right side of my body. And in addition to that, 20 broken bones, three other organs, my lungs, spleen was lacerated, my colon had to be put back into place. So yeah, I was completely broken when I hit the side of that building. And spent 8 days in a coma. And during that coma is when I hit my near-death experience, where I was basically nightmares kept on coming to me, one after the other. They're basically showing me that the people that were trying to take care of me in these nightmares did not care about taking care of me. They were just leaving me for dead, and I had to decide whether I wanted to live or not. Afterlife, I don't think I was in the afterlife. What I was in is kind of an in-between period where I was trying to figure out, how to get through it. And really, I was tormented by all these nightmares and dreams that were happening during this coma. And I had to decide whether I want to live or not. And I had to decide to try to live or not without knowing what was going to happen. I didn't know how broken I was because when I hit that building, I blacked out, so I didn't know what was going on. And I just knew I was in this coma, and I saw all these bad things happening during this coma where people weren't willing to help me, and I had to keep fighting through all these nightmares. It was almost like all these nightmares started after an accident happened, not the skydiving accident, but some sort of accident, and I was being blamed for what was going on, and people were really angry with me and telling me they wouldn't help me. So it was a period, and they went from the first dream I remember, or nightmare I remember, was two hospital people carrying me and then putting me down in the desert and then telling me they're not going to help me, and they turned around and walked away. And then it progressed to we were in a train accident, and I'm on the train and being blamed for something that happened, and people telling me the police are coming and that I had to stay where I was, and then someone was yelling in my ear that they were going to end my life and they're going to kill me, and that happened for hours and hours and hours. And the strange part about the nightmares is, since you're in a coma, you can't wake up, so it becomes your reality, and it feels so real that you're living this. Versus if you're not in a coma and you have a nightmare, you wake up and you can just brush it off and say, well, that wasn't real, and you kind of go along with your on with your life. Where in this nightmare in this coma, you can't ever wake up. So it feels so real that you're in there fighting to keep on going. And as I went on and on in the coma, the dreams and nightmares became more aggressive. At first, they were just leaving me for dead. Then they were planning my death and not allowing me to live. And I had to keep pushing through that, as being tempted to give up. Like these messages or dreams or nightmares were showing me that, if I just give up, all the pain would be gone, that I wouldn't have to deal with it anymore, and no one would know I gave up. And I didn't want to give up, and I didn't believe that all these dreams were true, that I wasn't going to. I believe that people cared about me. These were showing me that no one cared about me, and no one cared if I died, and they didn't want to help me. And I didn't really believe that. At some point, I said, that can't be true. I know people love me. I know they care for me, and I just have to keep on getting through these nightmares and pressing through the next one and the next one, and eventually I was going to get out the other side into the light again. Yeah, how long do I have the nightmares? Well, I was in the coma for 8 days, And it's hard to tell when you're in that coma if they lasted the entire time or are they all in the beginning or are all in the middle. You don't really have any idea of time and space and when this happens. I think they happen throughout because I know one nightmare happened at the end because that's when I really broke out of the coma. The last nightmare that I had before I got out of there, they were loading me on, conductors were loading me on a train, and it was like an open car, and they told me anyone who wanted to could kill me while I was on this train because of something bad I did. I'm not sure what the bad thing was, but the train took off, and finally I got so sick of all the temptation to give up. I looked around and said, you know, if you're going to kill me now. If you're not going to kill me now, there's no chance you're going to be able to kill me later because I'm coming back from all this and I'm coming back strong. And the next thing I remember was opening my eyes and seeing the doctor for the first time and coming out of the coma. That I received messages. It was there were more indirect messages, such as all these dreams were telling me that it's easy to give up. You'll get out of this pain. It wasn't a direct message like you need to keep fighting. I knew I needed to keep fighting because I needed to get through these dreams to get out of this coma or wherever I was at the time because it was a confusing place to be in. So there wasn't any kind of direct message that said, you fight through this. You need to live. It was more indirect messaging of, with all these terrible messages and all these horrible dreams, do you really still want to live through this? Because you don't know what's going to be in store for you on the other side. You don't know if you have, spinal damage, brain damage. You don't know if anything's permanent. You don't know if you're ever going to come back from this. So that was kind of the messaging that was giving me throughout these nightmares that just give up because this is what you're going to have something bad happening to you over and over and over again. All these dreams were showing me a dark place that I shouldn't live through. Before the near-death experience, I was going through a tough time in my life and working too many hours, not spending enough time with my loved ones and friends, and I had all these things I wanted to accomplish, like volunteer at a hospital, and I never got to any of that. And so I was praying to God and I said, I'm doing it my way and it's not really working. I'm surrendering to you. If you show me the way and you lead me, I'll follow you. And not long after that is when I crashed into the side of the building and went into that coma. And really, what I think about it is I was guided the whole way with all the lessons I had learned from the foundation I had built in Christianity and church and people teaching me all these lessons. And it was like a playbook to guide me through how to get through it. Now, I knew how to get through that temptation that was in those dreams because I knew about temptation from the Bible. And I knew about going through difficult things builds your perseverance and tests your faith. And all of those things going through this situation, through this coma, it really guided me how to get through the other side. I had to rely on faith. I had to rely that, Jesus will be by my side the entire time, and that if I truly said that I would follow him when I said I'm not doing it right, I did it my way and it's not going right, and I need to follow you, and I had to follow exactly what I said I would do, and that was part of the test, and I used everything I knew from my foundation in Christianity and loving my Lord and Savior, and following that is what got me through what motivation was really um, what was my motivation? My motivation was really to get through this was that I was meant for more than what I was doing then and before the accident, and I knew that, and I was trying to find that more and what I'm supposed to be doing and to getting through that. So I kind of started to understand more after the accident when I must have told the story 50 times of the accident after waking up in the coma. People would come in my hospital room and ask over and over and over again about the story because they're amazed that I was still alive and I was still there after they read my medical report. And people would ask me what happened, and I would keep on telling it. And at first, after a while, I lived it just a couple weeks earlier, and it's sort of overwhelming to relive it over and over again. And I kind of felt like it was a burden to keep telling the story because it was so hard to do. But then the one night I realized I should stop thinking about how it made me feel to tell a story. I started thinking about the way it made someone else feel that I told the story to and what the reaction was. Because every time I would tell a story, I would say, I'm not sure why I'm here. I'm not sure if I can get back to where I was and physically and if I'm going to be okay again. And I would get through with that, and then that person that I was talking to would start telling me about tough times they're going through in their lives, there's no way I would have been able to have them open up to me unless I went through that difficult time and was willing to really emotionally unload and tell them exactly what I was going through and the struggles I was going through. And that opened up the doorway for them to tell me about themselves. And I stopped thinking about the story as being a burden and hard for me to tell. I started thinking of it as a gift given to me to connect to people in a way I could have never connected to before unless I went through this accident. So from then on, I was just like, well, this accident is a gift, and I need to use it as a gift because someone can give you a gift, but it's up to the person who has it, who was given the gift, to decide what to do with it. And from there, I said, okay, maybe part of this is telling the story, and I think I'm going to be able to help other people by first living through this accident and coming back from it. And once I come back and fully get through this, then I'm going to have the ability to understand someone else going through the toughest time in their own lives and coming back from it, because I understand going through my toughest time in my own life and coming back from it. So with that knowledge, I said, okay, first you need to get better yourself, and then you're going to be prepared to help other people get through their toughest time. So it was something that came over time to start to understand, okay, I think this is the purpose of the accident, is to help other people, and this is giving you a way to do that I wouldn't have been able to do before the accident. Well, how do you overcome a difficult time? It's, you know, having practice going through difficult times gets you stronger for additional difficult times. Somebody asked me after I got through this, they said, well, life's going to be easy from now on. And, you know, you understand everything. You're going to get through this, and life's going to be easy. I said, no. When you get through a hard time, it just prepares you for the next hard time you're going to go through. You're more prepared for it. But I would say to start with getting through a difficult time, it's break down whatever you're going through and find something little to get through first. So when I was about to recover, at first I thought I was just going to jump out of bed and all of a sudden walk, and that wasn't a reality. That was definitely not going to happen. And it's when I finally admitted to myself I wasn't going to get better in a day, a week, or a month, or it's going to maybe a year or more to get better. I was like, you can't get better in one day. I was like, okay, but I can make a choice every day to find something to get slightly better than I am today. And as long as every day I keep on pushing to get just a little bit better, if you take that 30 days later, 60 days later, 90 days later, you're going to be far ahead of where you were if you just sat there and said, I can't do anything and I'm just going to lay here, because that was the other choice, to just lay there and do nothing. And that wasn't going to get me through anything. It wasn't going to get me to the end. It wasn't going to get me to where I wanted to be. But once I decided every day, find just a little thing. It just has to be a really small thing to get better, and over time that compounds and makes huge differences. But if you don't decide to make a small change every day, or small increase or enhancement, then you're never going to get to where you are. So it's just breaking it into small parts, manageable parts, things you can accomplish in a day. Because if you just look at the big picture and it's a year or two away, it looks so big, and it can be really discouraging. So it's all about that little step you need to take every day, which was going to add up over time. Yeah, just keep going and keep on pressing forward. And you have to, it's all about that commitment to get a little bit better every day, over and over and over again. And sometimes you don't feel like you're making any progress, because there's times, 2 or 3 weeks when I was going through that recovery and trying to walk again, I feel like feel like I'm doing the same thing every day. I'm not getting it better. And then a friend would come over and come see me that hasn't seen me in a month, and then it would say, wait a minute, when I was here a month ago, you could barely walk. Now you're walking all the way down the block, and you're walking for 30 or 40 minutes without stopping. And sometimes it's hard for yourself because you see yourself every single day. It's hard to tell little changes, but it shows that those little changes over time work when someone else comes and sees you and says, oh, wait a minute, I see a huge change. And the only reason that happens is because they haven't seen you in a while, so they see the big difference in 30 days. But So yeah, it's all about repeating over and over and over again. And then you got to test yourself because if you can't be scared to test yourself because the reality is when you test yourself, you can fail. Or you could succeed, and you're not going to succeed every single time. But if you're scared to test yourself, you're never going to figure out where you are in the process and what changes you need to make. Because if you're being successful in that test, well, then maybe you say, I'm going to go on that same path that I am right now, and that's going to get me there. When you fail, maybe you have to say, I need to make adjustments to what I'm doing in order to get to where I want. And unless you're willing to do that, you could be doing the wrong thing for, 60 days or 90 days or a year, and then you just wasted that year because you were scared to figure out what the result was for me it was rehabilitation of my body, and I could have been doing the wrong thing for a year unless I test myself. And sometimes it's not the happiest result. You say, I failed today. But you didn't fail. You figured out another way you didn't succeed. So now you say, okay, how do I adjust that? How do I make this change? And then you make that change and then you decide to do another test and say, okay, did those changes make sense? Did they actually get me to where I want? If no, well, then we change it again. If yes, is I keep going down that road. So it's you can't be scared to test yourself. Um, and the other thing is fear. Fear can protect you, but also fear can prevent you from getting to where you want to get to. So, for instance, the big thing I did, or the big goal I had after getting through the near-death experience, was I needed to set a goal for my body to recover. And my goal was to do a triathlon again. So that's a race where you swim and then bike and run. And with all my injuries from my legs, my upper body, everywhere, I had to use everything for a triathlon. When you swim, you use your upper body, lower body for running, biking, lower body. So I couldn't hide. And when I decided to race, um, I, I wasn't sure I could do it, and I decided to sign up and say, well, something's going to happen. And there was fear in me to go, do you think you could really do this, or are you just trying to fool yourself and you're not going to make it? So I had to decide whether that fear was trying to keep me safe from being injured again, or was it keeping me from getting to my goal? And I decided it was my fear of getting towards my goal because there could be failure if I push forward, or there could be great success and you don't know, but that fear could hold you back from finding that out either way. So one of the things is I had to make sure that fear wasn't holding me back because failure was possible. But I needed to test that, and I needed to put that fear aside and say, no, that fear is preventing you from getting to where you want to go. You have to ignore it and keep pushing through. Do I think my Lord and Savior helped me out overcome suffering? I'd say, yeah, 100%. I'd say he showed me how the way to get through that difficult time. It doesn't mean it wasn't painful. It was horribly painful, and it tested me to my limits of what I could do and how I could get through things. But he gave me the playbook on how to get through it. And with that determination of knowing a direction and having a goal at the end, I was able to fight through that. So I didn't ever lack on what direction to go or what to do. I knew what to do, and it was all that over and over and over, believing in my Lord and Savior, believing in myself to get through it, pushing forward over and over and over again. So yeah, I think believing in God and your Lord and Savior, and having that, you're given the way to live and the way to become a better person. When you make a mistake, there is redemption, and you're given grace that you're not going to be perfect and you're not going to know everything, and you're so God can guide you when you trust in Him for guidance. Prayer is a huge part of it. The first thing I woke up after the accident, the first thing I did was pray because that's all I knew how to do. And I said, Lord, get me through this difficult time. Please give me strength. I'm not sure what I'm going to have ahead of me to get through this. I'm not even sure what's wrong with me at this point when I woke up in the coma. But I trusted in God guiding me through this difficult situation. I don't think God allows evil to come to the earth. I think that's certainly there's darkness and there's Satan and bad things happen in this world. And why do bad things happen to good people? I don't have an answer for that, why that happens. But bad things do sometimes happen to to good people. And there is evil in this world that we are fighting against and trying to get rid of. But it does 100% exist. But I don't think God allows bad things to happen to people. I'm just not of that belief that um, you know he's angry. He's not angry at somebody and say, well, I'm going to let something bad happen to him because they didn't follow the way my teachings or the way I think they should live. Yeah, I don't believe in a God that punishes you. But yeah, bad things do happen to people that are wonderful. Bad things happen to bad people. But but yeah, I don't think of it as God's allowing evil to happen out there. There is evil and it exists. I would say you're gonna about to go through the hardest thing you've ever gone through, but it's gonna be the best thing you've ever gone through. That you will be a transformed person when you go through this accident, and that every second of it every second of suffering is worth getting through this because of the person you'll be after the accident. And I would say to to myself as far as, I was getting really busy with work and things like that, and I was missing out on the most important things in life, as such as spending time with family and friends and loved ones and doing things beyond, not just for me, but things outside of me. And it was certainly something I was missing before the accident. And the first thing I did when I woke up was really have regrets of, you missed out. I didn't think of all the good things that happened in life because plenty of good things happened in my life. I thought about all the things I wish I had done better in life. And I really laid there in that, yeah, after that coma, laying in bed for 10 weeks where I couldn't move. And I said, you know, the things that you think are the most important are also the things that you put off first when you're distracted by all these things in work. You are pulled away from it. You didn't intentionally make a decision that you are not going to spend as much time with your friends and family and loved ones and things like that. But that's what happened. And you have to prioritize the most important things in your life because those are the things you'll regret if you don't. Luckily, I had a second chance and I woke up and got to change things. Not everyone doesn't get a second chance, and I could have just as easily died and not being able to fix all these things that I wish I had done better. But I'd say most important thing is prioritize the things you feel are the most important because those are the things you'll regret in the end if you don't do them. After the what do I have or what new abilities I have after the accident? I would say that I slowed down life a lot and were I was consciously looking for people that I could help in some way. And maybe in the past when I was, living so fast and just go, go, go all the time, you miss out on people that are struggling. Maybe they're a friend, maybe you're a family, maybe it's just somebody that you pass on the street that now I could see that and I wasn't blind anymore to that. I could just tell someone's struggling and I would, I go out and try to help those people in any way I can. I'd stop and say, your voice doesn't sound quite right today. If it was a loved one, I know how their voice sounds. I was like, I think you're struggling with something today. Are you sure you don't want to talk about it? And then people are more likely to open up rather than just, keep it to themselves if you invite a way that they can communicate, that you sense something's wrong with them. And so I think I'm much more observant of people and that something might not right and you need to ask somebody, are you okay? What can I do to help you? What are you going through? And I think that's a huge part of it. And every day, I consider myself certainly lucky to be alive and that I have a greater purpose other than myself. It's a greater to help people get through those tough times and trying to find a way because it always changes. The way you think you're going to help people might not be the way they need to be helped. You need to evolve and change and figure out how can I help them and how can I change to be, to get that person through that tough time and how can I figure that out? Because it's not always a straight answer. It's not always the same answer for every person. And sometimes it's, volunteering something that you help with, and maybe they say no, and maybe you have to ask again, or maybe you just have to wait back and sit a week, and maybe that person will finally get to think about what they're going through, and they need your help. So I think it's an ever evolving process to try to figure out how best you can be of assistance to people that are going through a tough time. I believe that God has a plan for my life, I certainly have free will to do things, but I think everything in life builds off of the next thing. I think I had to go through a period of being lost in order to come back and live my next portion of my life and help people, unless I kind of understood how I was going down a wrong path and not taking care of the things that are most important to me in order to understand that to get to the next portion of my life and address that and make sure that doesn't happen again. So I think everything in life builds the next thing builds to the next, and the lessons you learned previously are applied to what you're going through now, and then what you're going through now and learning from that helps to whatever you're going through in the future. So I think you're constantly building, and things when you're going through a difficult time at the time you might think, it's a horrible thing to go through, but once you get out the other side, because sometimes you think, I'm never going to get through this time that I'm going through now, because it seems like it's lasts forever while you're in it. But then once you get past the other side, you say, oh, okay, these are the things I learned from it, and these are the things maybe I won't do again, and these are the things I need to do more of. So it's a constant learning process, as life, one block builds on the next. Yeah, building a strong foundation is incredibly important. And, from a Christian perspective, that means, you don't, the time to learn how to build a foundation isn't when you're going through the tough time. It's ahead of time. So, when I say building a strong foundation, the strong foundation has to do with, you're praying every day, you're going through devotionals and learning the Bible, and it's a constant work that you're going over every day. It's not just when you need something. It's just not when, hey God, I need this today in my prayer. It's being thankful for the tough times you're going through, um, and as well as from a non-Christian perspective, but I mean, not that it's a non-Christian one I'm about to talk about, but going through tough times prepares you for tough things. So testing yourself outside of this, sometimes things come to us that we don't have an option, a difficult time that we have to figure out to get through. But prior to that, going through difficult things helps you when you actually go through a tough time that you can't control. So for instance, um, I've climbed lots of mountains, and obviously I elected to climb a mountain. I decided to climb a mountain. But going through that process of having a goal and figuring out training for that, and then on the day when you're actually climbing the mountain, there's going to be all these obstacles or things that are going to get in front of you that you had no idea was going to be an obstacle before you started, and you have to continue to figure out how to get through it and solve that puzzle to get to the top, or maybe you have to turn around because the weather comes in and it's a horrible place, and you want to survive and you can't make it that day, and it's making all these decisions. Or doing triathlons, it's like, you know certainly I don't have to run, bike, and swim. It's something I choose to do, but that kind of mindset or mentality of overcoming obstacles on an everyday basis, of consistently going out and swim, bike, and run. It's not because when you feel like it, if you're training for a race, you do it whether you feel like it or not, or whether you're feeling motivated or feeling good. It doesn't matter. You have to get out there because you have a race to prepare for. So all of those types of things really got me through that difficult time, because I didn't have to say, well, how do I press through a tough time? It's like, well, you've been through tough times before. Maybe not this particular tough time, but you know how your brain gets through these tough times and has to push and has to little by little chip away until you get to that goal. So having that mindset before I ever went through this skydiving accident allowed me to say, okay, you have this problem, your goal's way off in the future, you're not aiming close to it, but every day find a way to chip away, and you're eventually going to get to it, or as close as you can. And you might fail, but I'd rather fail by doing everything possible that I know how to do than not trying at all. Because 10 years later, I say, well, I didn't get exactly to where I wanted to my goal, but I tried everything I could, rather than say 10 years from now, go, well, you didn't really try, you're not where you want, and what's your excuse because you didn't try to get through this hard time. So it's all about building a mentality or a mindset for getting through tough things. And if you have that built before you go through that uncontrolled tough time, uh, then if you have that built, then you have a good chance of saying this is how you get through it. If you never tried a hard thing in your life and all of a sudden this comes upon you, it's going to be hard to figure out, well, how do I, is the first time I got going to get through this hard time? Because I've never done it before. I've never pressed myself. Every time I've ever gotten to something tough, I quit. If you do that, well, I'm not sure how you're going to get through the tough time. You're going to have a lot harder time to do it versus if you say, okay, I failed before, but I've always pressed and did everything I could to get through it, and I didn't give up at the first time there was trouble. I kept on pushing through. So I think that's the big key that was part of my foundation that got me through those tough times. It was practice beforehand, not exactly the same, but it was similar to being hard times, and I kind of knew how to proceed.